Hey y'all, I'm Brer Sam, and this is one of my movie reviews. And this review is a little bit different. The closest you've ever gotten to hearing me review something like this were biopics. But this is a full-fledged documentary. I watched Hot Potato, the story of the Wiggles. That was a documentary about the Wiggles that came out very, very recently, like a couple of months ago, actually. And as some of you probably know, I love the Wiggles. I love them. I don't care how old I am. I just love them. There's something about them that just relaxes me. And after watching this, I think I know what that something is. So it's the story of the band from their years in college, that was the time they met, to today, what they're doing today. And they told the story pretty well. I knew most of it because I've been doing my research on them since I was about 15. This was all told by the Wiggles themselves and the people they worked with. The OG Wiggles themselves, Anthony Field, Murray Cook, Jeff Batt, and Greg Page. And hearing their words about what they went through and what's going on today actually was kind of refreshing, because not everything you read on the internet is true. They actually clarified on some things that were a little controversial. Like, for example, in 2012, Greg came back to the band after being away for 5 years because he has a heart condition. And for those 5 years, they had his understudy, Sam Moran. And there was a rumor for years that Greg wanted back in, so they just threw Sam out. And the documentary said that that's actually not true. It's actually still kind of a mystery what really happened, because Anthony and Greg had like not technically two different stories, but they were worded slightly differently. Like, Greg implied that Sam didn't really want to continue being a Wiggle and let him back in, and Anthony just said that Greg was doing better and wanted to come back, so they just ended Sam's contract. And I mean, yeah, contracts do end, so maybe it was ending all by itself. I don't know. That is what Anthony told the public. If he says his contract's ending, his contract's ending. It's not that they're completely throwing him out, like dumping him into the street. And I follow Sam Moran on Instagram now, and he's done his own children's music, and that's not half bad. So he's still got a little bit of wiggle in him. That's good. And the documentary also emphasized a lot of things. Like, I never really understood just how bad Greg's heart condition is. He has orthostatic intolerance, and that's basically when your heart doesn't work the way it should, particularly when you're standing. Your heart basically gets lazy. At first, I just thought, he was able to do it because he was still doing DVDs in the 3 years that he started suffering from it. I did not realize that he was actually having fainting spells. Like, Sam Moran said in the documentary that he would be on the stage in the background as a wiggly dancer, and Greg would sometimes signal to him that he needed to get off and fill it, like, in the middle of a song. That's how bad it was. And he also said that during a meet and greet, he had to catch Greg when he was fainting, right in front of the children, too. Can you imagine being a child and seeing that? But still, it's nothing compared to what 9/11 was. It included a lady that they actually met. She lost her husband to the attacks. Brian Cannizzaro, he was a firefighter in New York, and he was getting people out of the burning building, and the footage implied that the building collapsed on him. Terrible way to go. And his wife, Jackie, was part of the documentary, and she said that she cried when she met the Wiggles for the first time, and they were compassionate to her, and I did know that story, and I told it to a teacher at my high school, and she said it was the most touching thing she ever heard. And I really agree with that. Like even they didn't think that they would be wanted during a serious time like that, but they were needed. And for me, that's the best thing about the Wiggles, is that they actually care about what audiences are going through. Like, they even mentioned like sick children. They empathize for the parents as well. It's not just for the children, it's for the families. And not one story was told without mentioning how much they wanted to bring joy to their audiences. And I am a firm believer in that being what they really are. My father watched this with me, and he actually said that the part of the Wiggles that just wants to spread joy was food for thought. I asked him why it was food for thought, and he said, listen, if this were politics, and I apologize in advance to anyone who watches the news constantly, but Dad said that if this were politics, they would be looking for people who were aggrieved by the Wiggles and just could come up with any sob story about them that just makes people want to hate them, and they would turn it into clickbait, and that really doesn't leave anything on them. It's just like, oh, something miserable's going on, it's gonna make us miserable. It's like, yeah. But the Wiggles do not do that. They actually want to do something that's meaningful. Like, they said that they met people with rotten childhoods, and they wanted to leave a lasting impression on them. They just want to create happy memories for people to remember and for themselves to remember. That's the main thing that they do. They just want to leave good impressions, make good impressions. And they certainly left that kind of impression on me, because when I was diagnosed with autism, I didn't know what to think of myself, but then I heard what they had to say about diversity and being different in general, not just mentally, but in general, like the way you look, the way you speak, pretty much everything about people is different. Everyone is different. Everyone is unique. And that's what makes the world go round. And just hearing that, I started to like myself. The Wiggles just have that way of making people happy, and they devoted their lives to do that. And what I love about that too is that it wasn't lost on them that they also sort of blew off their own families. Like, I remember Murray saying, hey, my wife and I were already married and she didn't sign up for this. Yeah, I don't think anyone signs up for a career that lasts 30 years. Especially a famous one like that where you become like a pop culture icon. And like, seriously, they have to be icons by now. I mean, they're the first children's group to have a #1 hit. That's gotta count for something. They had a lot of sad stories like Greg's heart attack or their retirement, Jeff needing a pacemaker, but still, I'd heard all of those before, but the saddest thing that I never heard was Murray's story about his son saying at some point in his life, I don't like music. Why? Because that's what takes daddy away, and it's actually really sad. And also I thought that Murray, Greg, and Jeff were the only ones with health problems, but if you consider mental health a health problem, Anthony had clinical depression. And his story about that is actually pretty thought-provoking, because he said that he felt like a burden to the others, so he would hide in his dressing room and avoid people that he might potentially bother, and then keep to himself on the road because he's thinking to himself, no one wants to talk to me anyway. I mean, I know how that feels. And then right after that story was told, Greg said, you know, without Anthony, none of this would have happened. He basically gave Anthony credit for being a burden. It's kind of funny how sometimes in life you think that you're such a burden that you bother people and you annoy them, and it's depressing to think about, but really, if it weren't for you, they wouldn't be where they are. So I feel like people tend to not think about that. They focus on the negative, but the Wiggles do it again. They actually inspire me to think about all the positives that happen in my life because they are so positive themselves, and I'm just gushing all over again. I just love how they always try to be positive and inspire other people to be positive, even if they don't intend to. They're just inspiring in that sense. Now, with that said, there definitely are some things that I think they could have done better. Like, for instance, they didn't say enough about the movie. The movie is the best thing they ever did. And it was the first thing of theirs I ever watched. And I honestly think I'm going to rewatch it after I finish this review because it is fantabulous. I love the Wiggles movie, and they did say a couple of things about it. Like, Jeff showed a picture of him in the Burr Street makeup. But aside from that, they didn't really say how much of an impact that it made. Like, it was basically the launch of them turning from a band to a brand. And the money wasn't lost on them either. Like, they included how they were asked about the money they make, and it was good. Actually, I think they're some of the richest men alive. But yeah, they should have talked more about the movie, and the only complaint about the documentary is that I would have liked to have seen more stuff that I'd never seen. And as a matter of fact, it did show a lot of things that I'd never seen before. Like before I saw this, I had never, ever heard a single story of the Wiggles fighting with each other. Because they're such great friends. I mean, Anthony cried on stage after Greg had a heart attack. That's how much they loved each other. They still do. They still love each other, don't get me wrong. But I heard a backstage story here where Greg came backstage and heard Anthony playing the drums, and he said, "We can hear you from the stage." And then Anthony threw his drums at him. And then sometime later, Greg finds a water stain on his yellow skivvy, and he blamed Anthony for it, and Anthony kept saying that he didn't do it, and all this time I'm saying, who did? Yeah, who did do that? Anyone who knows, leave a comment, because I want to know, who did that? One thing that I realized from watching this was just how chill a guy Murray is. I mean, I always knew that Murray was a very easygoing guy. He's very positive, and he gets passionate about some things like guitars. He has like 50 guitars. Just watch a video of him, for God's sake. But aside from like him being like a rock god and a rock music lover, he's just the chillest dude. Like, when you hear him talk about things that the band went through, it's like, he says it in the most casual tone. Like, there was one point where he talked about like how big the band was getting and how popular they were. He just says, hey, it was pretty exciting. It was exciting. Yeah. He does admit that he tears up at one point, but when it gets to the sad stuff, the least you hear him say is it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching. So Murray, I don't know how you do it, but I admire how chill you are. I mean, Murray has always been my favorite Wiggle, so I'm really glad that they had the OG guys tell most of the story, because the OGs are the best. What can I say? So this was great. I recommend it. It's on Prime Video, and it's about time that the Wiggles were shown on American Prime Video, because they're great. I love them. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all later. Bye!